that the only way Kenny Omega can beat Jon Moxley?
Bullshit. Absolute.
They're running like scalded dogs here.
Where are they
They're
going?
not hanging around for a celebration or a press conference.
Fleeing from the scene of the crime is what they're doing.
Callous.
God.
What a no-good bastard.
Kenny, Doc.
Kenny Omega's
Kenny.
right there with him.
Okay, guys. Sir, what did you just do? What's going on? What the hell's going on here?
Find out this Tuesday night.
Tuesday? Dynamite's on Wednesday.
This Tuesday, Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Me and Kenny will tell you all about it, Marvin.
What the hell? We've just been jobbed. We've been screwed big time here.
Damn right.
Welcome to Talk AEW, the weekly AEW podcast from GoombaStomp.com and TiltMagazine.net. My name's Ian Goodwillie, and we are here, of course, with the editor-in-chief of both Goomba Stomp and Tilt Magazine, Ricky D.
What's up, Ian? We got a guest today. Mariko's off for one more week. She's back next week, but yeah, we got a guest. I'm excited.
And that man's name is Aaron Santos. Aaron is the former host of the N-Express podcast. Aaron, welcome to the show.
What's up, Internet? What's up, wrestling fans?
Aaron is secretly the vice president of AEW. Don't tell anybody.
Yes, secretly. Oh no, I'm secretly like the exalted one.
Okay, so yo, Ian, check this out. So last night, I sit down to watch AEW Dynamite. I was actually late because I ended up going to buy my mom a Christmas tree. It's a long story, it doesn't matter. So I'm about 15 minutes late, but I got a PVR. So, you know, I basically rewind it, watch it from the beginning, but I'm staying off social media just in case. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened, but if the big reveal, Sting showing up, was spoiled to me ahead of time, I would have lost my shit because I don't know if you know this, but Sting is my favorite wrestler of all time.
I did not know that.
Yeah, him, Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart.
Oh, nice.
I did not know that.
I used to watch WCW just for Sting, back way before Nitro. Like, we're talking about Saturday, Sunday mornings. I remember Sting used to have the blonde hair and just the face paint, like the color. He was more colorful before it became like the whole Crow reinvention.
The surfer look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Before we get to Sting, so, you know, I sit down and I'm like, I wanted to message you, Mariko, but I'm running late and I'm like all stressed out because I want to watch Dynamite. But the thing is, I swear to God, I was going to message you guys. I'm like, so for like weeks now on the podcast, we've been talking about the additional hour. Tony Khan is promising a new show. It might be on Tuesdays. It won't be on Mondays. It's guaranteed not to be on like Saturday. But anyways, so I was thinking about this, right? And I was like, okay, we got these wrestlers showing up who don't belong in AEW, like Thunder Rosa, whatever. We have like announcers, like guys on commentary who don't belong to AEW. And I was like, well, what if, and this is like a big what if, so I want to know what you guys think about this. But what if, you know, AEW isn't necessarily adding a new show, they are just merging with a company like, for example, Impact. And then we had the big, huge, shocking twist ending of Dynamite. And I'm still not convinced. But here's the thing. Tony Khan said and Cody Rhodes said that by the end of the year, by the way, there's only like 4 weeks left in 2020, there would be a new show added to AEW. That's not Dark. Am I crazy? Tell me I'm crazy.
I don't think Impact, like, there's no indication that Impact and AEW are becoming one company. It's just it's the same as their working relationship with NWA. They're trying to foster working relationships within the wrestling community. So I don't think the new show is Impact by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's going to be some trading of talent. There's going to be some crossover storylines. Hey, maybe this will be a better version of WWE's Invasion angle from back in the day. But it's I don't think Impact's the new show. I mean, if that's what's going on here, there's a much bigger relationship they have not uncovered yet.
For sure. But the thing is, what I find weird is Kenny Omega is going to pop up on Tuesday. Like, the show ends, like, find out Tuesday night, like, as if, nothing happens on Tuesday, right, guys? Like, nothing happens on Dark, for example. I was like, that's such a slap in the face to Dark.
Yeah.
It kind of was, wasn't it? I didn't think about it that way. It really was. I don't think I still don't see it meaning that they're becoming like there's any merger or anything happening here. I think it's just it's a partnership. It's a relationship. They're going to have a working relationship. I think it's a good idea. I find it hilarious that AEW is out there fostering working relationships with NWA and Impact and even New Japan, and NXT can't even get on the Survivor Series card in WWE. Like, there's not even a working relationship inside WWE between their own in-house brands, but AEW is out there making partnerships with other companies. Like, it's such a completely different dynamic between those two. I think AEW is still planning on their own other show. I think there's still something else coming. I was reading an interview with Tony where he was talking from his recent media call. He was talking about splitting Dark into two separate shows. One of them is going to be one that's potentially one will be one that's focused on brand new talent. One will be focused on established talent, kind of thing. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but it was something he was spitballing on the line too. So I mean, there's so many potentials as to what this is going to be at. I mean, there's no way to say what that's going to be, but I still think that if they're going to do another show, it's going to be broadcast on TNT. I don't see TNT being particularly happy with, like, if they are with Impact. If Impact, let's say for argument's sake, Impact and AEW become a tighter association, they still have their deal with Access TV. I don't see TNT being particularly happy about AEW having another show on another network. So I would expect that, there'll be another show on TNT yet.
But wouldn't it be more the story of Impact, like, merging with AEW and leaving Access? Like, how exclusive is, like, their show on Access?
That's their network. Like, that's where their deal is. So I mean,
because I know they stream on Twitch too. So it's completely independently run then. Like,
I don't think they're streaming on Twitch anymore. That stopped when they started with Access.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, they haven't. The Twitch streaming was what they were doing in lieu of a network, and then when they signed up with Access, the Twitch streaming stopped. So, like, Access is their network, the same way TNT is AEW's network.
But Aaron, don't you think it's weird? Like, okay, given what Ian's saying here, you've made a good point, Ian, like about like how TNT wouldn't necessarily be happy with AEW having their talent show up on Impact when Impact has a TV deal with a different network. But that's exactly what's happening. Like, their biggest star, arguably, Kenny Omega, is going to appear on Impact on Tuesday.
No, that's not what I said. What I said was they're not going to have a full-fledged second show on another network. I didn't say anything about talent. Like, if Kenny Omega is going to go over there, that can be worked out. There's a trade of there'll be a trade of talent. There'll be talent going back and forth. That I can see TNT having no problem with. What I said was the second show will not be Impact. I guarantee you that right now.
Okay.
Like, I would be genuinely shocked if these two they would have to become one company, and for Impact to be the second show, then the Access TV deal would have to end. Impact would have to come over to TNT, and it would be AEW Impact. That's the only way that happens.
How popular and big is Impact, and how many shows does Impact have? Like, what's the measure of Impact compared to AEW?
They have one weekly show, about 2 hours. I'm not sure how they do their regular pay-per-views. Their big draw is their women's division by far. I couldn't tell you who their main champion is right now, like on the men's side, but they have still what I firmly believe is the best women's division in the business. They've got great talent on there. They book them incredibly well. They also have several solid tag teams too. Guys like, obviously Anderson and Gallows for one thing.
Yeah.
But also the North. I mean, the North is an amazing tag team. The North is specifically a tag team that FTR has been very clear they want to face. They've been saying that ever since they left WWE. The North has been high on their list, and so that's the kind of thing we're going to see. We're going to see those kind of matchups. We're going to see. Maybe we'll see Layla Hirsch and Jordan Grace whip each other around the ring. I don't know, but that's the kind of stuff. This is what they're doing. They're bringing talent. And it's the same way that NWA is sending over, Thunder Rosa to feud with Britt Baker, kind of thing, right? Like it builds both brands. It's cooperative, and I think it's a smart move for all these companies involved too. Like, the more cooperation they have, that's what they've needed for a long time. Like, having these smaller separate companies when you're dealing with something like WWE, who are they putting out the best product in the business? God, no, but they're still the biggest name in the game. That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, because you look at the roster and the development system that they have going on, like it just doesn't compare to like AEW. But it look like if you have different collaborations with like different wrestling circuits, then you're building up. You could build up a roster that could rival WWE.
Absolutely agree with you, because I mean right now, like the Rascals just left Impact to go to WL. 2 out of 3 of them they put out an announcement of who they've signed for the training center, and only 2 out of 3 Rascals were on the list, which I'm like, okay, that's weird, but okay. And right now, like if you're AEW, you're Impact, you're NWA, you're trying to coax new talent to come over. Yeah. It's a much, much, much more interesting offer. You can say, look, we have a working, like you come sign with AEW, we have a working relationship with Impact and NWA. There's potential for you to appear on all these different shows. We have Dark, so you'll be able to appear on our YouTube show, which gets lots of views, does great. There's Dynamite, and there's whatever the third one, and plus they have great pay-per-views. But on top of that, you can be there's potential to be part of these other things thanks to our cooperation with them. And if they can work New Japan in there too, holy crap.
Okay, so cross-promotion's cool, but hear me out. This is what worries me. This is going to be a weird comparison, but just hear me out. So I used to be a huge avid collector of comic books, specifically DC comics. The reason why I first stopped collecting comic books was because there were so many bloody crossovers, I couldn't keep up. I had to buy every single book that came out every single month. It was costing me like $50 a week, and I just said, screw this, and I gave up. And it doesn't help that they rebooted DC like 3 or 4 times in the past like 20 years. Second time I quit DC for the exact same reason, too many crossovers. Now here's the thing. So Kenny Omega takes a championship, which he just won on Dynamite, runs out with one of the key members of Impact, and ends Dynamite by saying, in order to find out what's happening, tune into this other show, this other wrestling promotion on Tuesday nights, which again competes with Dark, right? So what happens if you have all of these cross promotions? All of a sudden, someone like me, who lives in Montreal, who doesn't have access to all these channels and can't watch all of these like wrestling promotions, like New Japan or Ring of Honor or Impact, how do I get to see these storylines if they're on wrestling promotions and channels that I do not catch? That is my worry. And so that's why I'm trying to like, that's why I asked the question at the beginning. And I said at the very start of the podcast, like, I think it's far-fetched and it's like 99.9% not going to happen. Of course, anything can happen, because we all saw, for example, Vince McMahon buyout on live television, which was like mind-blowing at the time, right? So I guess my two concerns, and I'm going to, Aaron, you can answer this because you're like the big, huge Kenny Omega fan here. Like my main concerns is I don't want Dark, like, I mean, Dark is a YouTube channel, which we think is a really good product. Some of us, like Ian, might think it's actually better than Dynamite. And so, but we kind of feel like they don't put enough attention and love into producing a show like they would Dynamite, right? So I don't want a show like Impact to take away from AEW and a show like Dark, but I do like the idea of cross promotions. So it depends on how they do it. But anyhow, Kenny Omega, you're the big fan of this guy. He finally wins the belt, first man to beat Jon Moxley at the end of the show, and takes off to another wrestling promotion. You like that ending?
If I like the ending, I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised like the way it ended at first, because like I wouldn't like. To be honest, like, I wouldn't say like it's the first time that we've seen like Kenny Omega turn heel, because he has done that in NPJW. But I guess like with all the hype, it was a little like underwhelming just the way like the match ended. But and the fact that like he was going to Impact, because like I haven't really followed Impact that much in the last couple of years, so like I'm a little in the dark with Impact. But after like 24 hours and letting it like sink in and boil, and like doing my research and looking at the roster of Impact, I'm just like, holy crap, that's a crazy like it's something I want to talk about later when we get to the main event. But the fact that like Kenny Omega is going to be on Impact, and if they do like this cross promotion thing with like with the roster there, like there's potential for crazy storylines, and especially like if Kenny Omega gets all like if he gets to like use all his creative juices, it's like I find like that ending became more crazier.
So you like the idea, but not the execution.
In the beginning, the execution felt weird because it was very like something like it felt like something that WWE would do. It's like, oh, cheap shots at the head and down for the count, and the heel wins. Like it was such a quick turnaround. So, like it was...
I like the execution in the ring. What I felt didn't really work, and I don't think it's really AEW's fault. I think him running out. It was weird because, like, I think, like, if it felt like
the screw job. Like, it might be like sort of like the Easter egg that they're trying to pull, like the screw job, like them just like running away, like how like the screw job in Montreal, like how Herb, like the referee, like just ran out of the building.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just the running out of the building, and I think it really just had to do with the fact that because of COVID, they only had like about a few hundred people in the stands. It didn't really feel like a big arena thing with a big crowd. No,
but again, like execution wise, like it just looked silly. Like again, going back to like them running out of the ring into like the back parking lot, and then it just so happens that like the commentator
Marvez,
was just, Arvez was just
that was
behind
funny.
the truck.
Come on,
it was funny though, but it's like, oh, was he just standing there behind the truck this whole time? Like,
see, I think the thing is, okay, and maybe you're gonna think I'm wrong, Ian. I think because it was such a big deal that Kenny Omega beat Jon Moxley, first man to actually pin him in AEW and win the championship belt when he's had it for like a year now. I think he should have like celebrated for like, I don't know, 2 minutes at least in the ring. You know what I mean? And then they can walk out. Like, why was he running out? Nobody was chasing him. That's what I didn't understand. Like, why are you running, dude? Nobody's chasing you.
Yeah, but also Kenny Omega took quite a like he took like 3 paradigm shifts, and this, like, wasn't the third one like on the heater or something?
I'm not sure if he took 2 or 3, but
he took quite a lot of paradigm shifts.
Yeah, but apparently the injury, which as we now know, was like it was all for show. He wasn't really injured. It was because his head hit the heater, and so they thought he might have a concussion. So they're trying to stop the match, and what's his face comes out with the microphone, and we know the rest of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do like the idea of cross promotions. If, like, for example, I can't watch the match or I can't watch Impact, if they drop those, the video of the match or the promos or whatever it is, if they drop it on YouTube and I can watch it on YouTube, I have no problem with that because I already watched Dark on YouTube. I just want to make sure that the fans are not left out who don't have access to Impact, especially, again, because it's Tuesday night, which is also like the same night of Dark.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because like when AEW announced that they're going to be on TNT, it was that question, like, well, how are like, well, on the Canadian side anyways, like, how are we going to watch it? Like, not all of us have TNT or like have any US networks. So, and then you had Kenny Omega go on live announcing that AEW was going to be available to the Canadian fans through TSN. So, like Kenny Omega does this. This is why I love Kenny Omega, because like because
he's Canadian.
He's Canadian, and he looks out for his fellow, like, he knows he has a lot of fans in Canada, and he wants to make sure that everyone who are fans of him can follow him wherever he's at. So I'm sure there's going to be a way for like, us to watch it somehow.
Okay, so basically, we think that there will be an extra hour, an extra show of AEW, right? Am I correct about this? They haven't changed their mind?
Yeah.
There'll be something.
Be.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the actual match, like the Kenny Omega Jon Moxley match, apart from the ending?
I thought it was a great match. I mean, like it was a great back and forth. I mean, we see it just. I don't know what else to say. Like, it was good.
I mean, it was a great title match. It was what I wanted from Moxley and Omega. It was a good match. I enjoyed the crap out of it. I mean, the ending didn't bother me all that much. I mean, I don't disagree that he could have hung around and celebrated. I think the moment of him and Don's screw job would have made more sense if he hung around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was the problem. Again, he was running, like you said, he was running away from no one.
I think I know what he was running away from, though. I think they were running out of time.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's what was happening. They were trying,
Yeah.
but they said at least once in that match that we'll stick with this till the end, and it'll go over. If it goes over time, it goes over time. I don't even know, but it would have made more sense if he was out there celebrating with the Young Bucks or something, or it would have sold the moment a bit more. Like he took off before anybody, like he ran from no problem whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. But didn't Kenny Omega break away from the Elite?
Not really.
No, he came out and celebrated with the Young Bucks when they won the championships off FTR not that long ago.
Okay, yeah,
like
that's true.
Like Adam Page is the one who's kind of on the outs. Cody, I would guessing at this point, isn't with them, being that he hasn't been seen in a ring with them in months.
Yeah,
like he's doing his thing with his ever-growing family of people in tracksuits. Like it's one of those things that it's just there's still an association there, so I don't know. It was the moment at that moment at the very end was just too hurried, and I think it took too long. Like it was too hurried, and there wasn't enough detail in it for it to make sense in the moment. I think what Aaron's saying is quite accurate. Like as you think about it after, like, oh, okay, and everything starts. Okay, well that's interesting, but because they rushed through it so quickly at the end, I think
it
more
just
people.
It just happened so quickly, right?
It did. You're more taken back to think like, wait. And here's the other thing, and this is no disrespect to Don Callis. How many people watching AEW last night know who Don Callis is?
No, not many, but at least
yeah.
they explained who he is and his relationship to Kenny Omega. Like at least they explained it for anyone who doesn't know.
To an extent, like it took, for that whole ending to make sense, your brain had to make a huge leap in logic for that ending to make sense. Like piecing together Don Callis and Kenny Omega and the parts that they've given you. They told you what they could without spoiling what was going to happen, but it's one of those things where there's so many blanks left to fill in, and it was so rushed at the end that you're just like, wait, what just happened?
Well, here's the thing, because like I haven't been able to watch all the AEW stuff. Like this is all like stuff that I read like leading up to it, and then piecing it all together, because back in September, I think Don Callis already made an appearance on AEW. Like this is not his first appearance. Yeah. Exactly. And then there was this moment in I think it was a double or which one was it with that?
It was Full Gear.
It was Full Gear, right? Like Adam Page and Kenny Omega lost the title.
Oh no! I thought no.
It was Double or Nothing.
I'm not sure, but I know what you're talking about. I can't remember which pay-per-view is which.
So you had Kenny Omega leaving the match, like the same scenario as what just happened last night, where he's running away and there's an SUV in the back, and then the Young Bucks are chasing after him and they're asking him like, hey, where are you going? And then Kenny Omega gets in there and he's like, this is a one-way ticket. You're either in or you're out. And then that's why I assumed that the Elite that Kenny Omega broke, because after that, Kenny Omega kind of came back as his cleaner persona. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed.
Yeah, no, absolutely, he did. They were very overt about that.
Yeah, so it was
what you're saying is you're linking the ending of Dynamite yesterday to that match at the last.
It was a long build up since the tag team battle, like tag team fight.
Oh yeah, I mean they've been building Kenny ever since the end of his tag team with Adam Page. They've been definitively building him back up as a cleaner. Yeah, no, that's been going on for a while now. But the build up to this Impact thing, that's something separate.
It came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, he did appear in commentary before doing commentary for Kenny Omega match, and like Aaron said, they did have the exact same ending to the match where he runs to the back in the parking lot, jumps in the SUV. And in that segment, he tells the Young Bucks, like, you're either in or out. So, yeah, they've been building to it. I mean, I'm sure the clues have been in front of our face for, like, weeks, and we just haven't noticed.
Possibly.
Well, when you think about it that way, it's just genius in storytelling, like, just this build-up. But, like I said, like, if you're just catching up to AEW and then you're watching, like, everything that's just happening right in front of you, you're just like, what the hell just happened? It's like,
I don't think that this was the best episode of Dynamite, although many people seem to think it was. I think it had probably the biggest surprise reveal, like the biggest debut of any wrestler in Dynamite, I think, which we can talk about after the break. But the great thing about this episode of Dynamite was I think every single match told a fantastic story from start to finish. From that opening battle royale with the whole story behind the Inner Circle, to even the women's match, to, of course, Sting, which we're going to talk about after the break, and of course, finally Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley and Impact. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, like just Kenny Omega being involved with Impact is like, can I just say like Bullet Club reunion? Like, it's gonna happen. I hope it happens.
Well, they'll do something with it. I mean, there's too much potential there. I hope they do with this. They've been doing great work with their women's division in the last few weeks, the last 2 or 3 weeks specifically, and I think for them, they've been needing an association with the Impact women's division could do wonders for them, because it means people like Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie. Although it is worth noting that like Taya Valkyrie, who's one of their biggest female stars, her contract's up with Impact in January. Rosemary's up in February. Like there's some fairly sizable talent that, as far as I know, haven't re-signed yet. So I'm curious to see if this whole thing could be used to entice them, or it might be what makes them move off finally. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. There's so many variables involved in this whole scenario, and we know so little about the relationship still. It's so going to be so interesting to watch it all unfold, though. Like it's been. I'm trying to think of a time. Like, I mean, there's been cooperation between, like, Ring of Honor and New Japan have had a relationship for a while. I think it's definitely benefited Ring of Honor more than it's benefited New Japan. But I think it's not like this is, not been done before. But I'm really curious. Thinking back to your comparison to comic book crossovers, I don't think it's so much like internal stuff inside DC. It's more like back in the day when Marvel and DC used to cross over all the time. When they used to do things like the Amalgam storyline or things like that, where they would actually have stories and characters cross paths, where Batman would go at it for a bit. And those could either be really great, or they could just be gigantic, pointless train wrecks that make absolutely no sense. And it's a fine line. It depends on, as long as nobody's trying to get the upper hand on anybody else and it's just a good working relationship, this could be very cool.
But Kenny Omega, he still has the AAA Mega Championship, right?
He does, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oddly enough, and Taya Valkyrie is the Reina de la Reinas champion for AAA as well. She's the women's champ for the same company, and she's over in Impact. So now you're going to have those two champs for these two titles from AAA working like in these two companies in the U.S. that are now cooperative, which is interesting too.
There's a lot of cross promotion going on right now. Mm-hmm. It's hard to keep up.
What
was his name again? Jeff Cobbs? Was that his name?
Jeff Cobb?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he signed with New Japan recently.
Yeah, so he basically wrestled one match in AEW.
Yeah. Well, they never signed him to a contract. They brought him in for that one thing. They didn't put him on contract, and they really should have, because I saw him in Saskatoon here last year. One of the local promotions brought him in, and he is number one, super nice dude. Number two, oh my God, is he a hell of a wrestler? Just a beast. Anybody who has him is lucky. But I'm curious to see what happens. Will we end up with a match on AEW that is like Taya Valkyrie from Impact wrestling Thunder Rosa from NWA on AEW Dynamite?
That'd be crazy.
Isn't that? We're entering a zone right now where that is not off the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the most exciting part with
agree. Yes.
Yeah, with all these like cross promotion events and everything. Like it's just that you could create like any kind of storyline.
Oh,
I mean, like I said, like for me, it's like it's just Kenny Omega going to Impact, and then like he's going to reunite with Carl Anderson, like one of the original members or founders of Bullet Club. I'm like, and he's back as the leader. I'm like, dude, you could totally bring back the Bullet Club. Like, granted, like two members of them are like with WWE, but you could totally do it.
Yeah, there's still plenty of members of Bullet Club in New Japan too. That's the thing. Like, if New Japan gets in the mix, this is how these companies, like, one individual company is not going to quote unquote take down WWE, but all of them working together, that's a real threat to WWE's domination over the wrestling scene worldwide. Like that is a real thing. And then you start bringing in AAA, like Rick said, and then you start bringing in New Japan, like all of these companies building these associations and these mutually beneficial agreements. oh, look at where we end up. We end up with this big world of wrestling finally, which is what we should have. Instead of closed off companies with their own separate little pods of talent, this big world of wrestling where everybody benefits and you get these interesting cross promotional events. And can you imagine the side? Like they have a one event a year, one pay per view that consists of, let's just keep it with the three, like NWA, AEW, and Impact talent all together, one big pay per view a year.
Oh my gosh!
Who would not get that?
Yeah.
What wrestling fan in their right mind would not get that pay per view?
Yeah.
Oh. I've gone so far off the reservation now on what is like I've assumed so much in this whole thing at this point to make that a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Goddamn. Oh, the potential is so huge. All right, that brings us to the end of the first segment. When we come back, Talk AEW will lean into the appearance of the icon, Sting. We'll be right back.
Oh my God, since 2001!
18 years! The last match on TNT was Sting beating Ric Flair, and now the Stinger is here on AEW. Mark it down, Wednesday night, December the 2nd, 2020. This crazy year has just gone insane.
I can't believe what I'm seeing! Sting is here! Look at the fans!
The fans are going crazy. Nobody's forgotten. He's a legend, is this man, an icon. He steps in the ring stoically, walking with a purpose, a cautioned purpose. And these two have never been great friends.
No, sir.
But they may have a common enemy right now.
I can't believe what I'm seeing, Excalibur. I can't believe what I'm seeing. The first time in 18 years, Sting is back on TNT.
And we're back for the main event of Talk AEW, Goombastomp.com, TiltMagazine.net with Ricky D and Aaron Santos. We are talking Sting. The man, the myth, the legend, the icon Sting has signed a multi-year deal with AEW. What that looks like, we don't know for sure yet. We don't know what he's doing. All we know is he came to the ring, scared the crap out of Team Taz, and walked around the ring and stared like Dustin and Cody and Darby and Arn all in the eyes, and then walked back out as it snowed, which was really weird. I love that in Florida they think it's cold right now. That's I went outside, it was -10. There's 3 feet of snow on my front lawn. But yeah, sure, it's cold in Florida right now. But goddamn, like I don't know what this is gonna be, but whoa. Just whoa.
Man, I lost my shit when this happened. And we talked about this like last week. There was rumors for about a few weeks now that Sting would appear, and everyone thought he was going to pop up during a PPV. And no, he appears on Dynamite, which I think is a really smart move because last year in December they had like the worst ratings ever. So clearly they wanted this specific episode of Dynamite, which they called Winter is Coming, to be a big deal so they can boost their ratings. Okay, so first of all, the dude is 61 years old. He looks great. I mean, I know we haven't seen him in ring. We haven't seen him in action, but he looks great. Like, usually when someone shows up and, you know, they're like, oh, no offense, like a washed-up wrestler or hasn't wrestled in a while, it's like you get Jake the Snake, right? Big belly, the guy can barely, like, walk, forget about doing a DDT type thing. So, Sting looks great.
Does he feel great? That's the question.
Well, that's the thing. So he had his operation. It's the exact same operation I think that Edge had. Edge did come back. Now, is it dangerous? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. How much of wrestling is he actually going to do as opposed to just doing promos? And, like, I mean, look at Matt Hardy, for example. I mean, Matt Hardy wrestles, but I would say that the majority of screen time for Matt Hardy in AEW has been Matt Hardy just doing really cool promos, which is fine because the guy's great on the microphone and he has these great cinematic, like, vignettes, right? But I, like, really lost my shit. Yet, yes, you know, it would have been nice if there was a crowd, because they would have had one hell of a reaction from the crowd. Like, we only had a few hundred people in the audience. We could still hear them going absolutely insane. I like the idea of the snow, to be totally honest. Like, I like the visual of Sting walking out. And clearly the whole thing is like a riff off of Game of Thrones, and he's kind of like a White Walker, except he's not really, because he's Sting, and he can actually kill a White Walker because he's Sting and he's amazing, and he's the myth, the legend, the icon, the greatest wrestler ever.
Just gushing all over it.
But the thing that had me flipping out was what I've been waiting for, when Sting walks up to Darby Allin and stares him right in the eyes. And I'm like, this is why Darby Allin might be my new favorite. Sorry, Sammy.
But I mean, Sammy's still the sexiest, though, right? Like, he's still the most handsome dude, right? Like, that hasn't changed.
I mean, I think he's really the handsome dude in AEW. Still, like, I mean, it's hard to knock Sammy off the top because I love him in the ring, like, just him as a wrestler. Forget about his personality and him on the mic. But, man, Darby Allin, I love Darby Allin. Like, there's things I don't like about Darby Allin, but it's more like I'm worried about him hurting himself.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's fair.
Because he's like 27 years old. He has a lot of potential. Yeah. He's still like petite, like no offense. He's not exactly a big guy. So I'm afraid of him hurting himself. But I don't know, man.
He is putting himself in body bags and throwing himself off of things.
It's insane.
Like it does. I love the guy. I love his shtick. I love his gimmick. But goddamn, there's moments like that where, like, Darby, you're gonna end your career before it gets rolling, bud. Like, you need to.
Someone needs to tell Darby that the reason why people like Darby, it's not because he does these stunts,
crazy
like
jackass things.
Yeah, it's not because he's trying to be Evel Knievel here. People like Darby Allin because he's just cool. He's a good wrestler. He's got a great finishing move. He's got a great look. He's got a great theme song. He doesn't have to do these very dangerous stunts. People will still like the guy. He's awesome.
Absolutely. No, he's great. Period. You're right. And I don't know what this thing with Sting is. Were we talking about it, or was I reading it somewhere where they were talking about the idea, like, when they were, you're right, about the speculation of Sting for weeks, him coming in, him staring down Darby. People were talking about him not being like Darby's opponent, but being his, like, essentially his version of Arn Anderson. Like, his coach, his mentor. And I'm like, I would be so into that. I would love that storyline.
Wait, sorry. Can you say that again? Who's going to be whose coach?
Well, that Sting would mentor Darby Allin.
I mean, that's the first thing I thought they would do, because he is 61 years old. Like, again, like, here's the thing. If we're going to get Sting back, I want Sting back doing what Sting can do great. If Sting can't really wrestle because of his injury, there's still a lot you can do with him in AEW and not put the man in danger. Because I don't want to see a wrestler who's washed up or injured or whatever whatever, get in the ring and the match is just boring. Like we talked about Chris Jericho like a few weeks ago. He still does some pretty impressive moves, like the line salt. He did the whatchamacallit from like the top rope. Even in the match this week, he did like the line salt again. But let's face it, like, Chris Jericho can barely move these days. Like, the guy is like old and stuff. So I would like prefer to watch Sting be the manager and do some really kick-ass promos with Darby Allin as opposed to him just wrestling really bad matches.
Well, I think, and there's a lot to be said. Like, they do have training facilities backstage too. Like, behind the scenes, they are training wrestlers. So I mean, having him there, like, this is the man, right? Like, he could easily head back there, become someone of a not just an on-screen mentor, but a real behind-the-scenes mentor, training these younger talents that AEW has to help bring them up. You know what? This is like, we've been talking for a year. Like, people have been talking for a year now about AEW, about it being competition. Like, it's been obviously taking it to NXT for most of that time, and that's in part. There's a lot of reasons for that, but to me, like, they've had a lot of big guys. They brought in Moxley. They brought in Jericho. Bringing in Sting is firing a shot right across WWE's bow and saying, like, look, like, you need to be paying attention to what we're doing. Here's goddamn Sting.
Yeah.
Like, this is somebody to keep attention.
Can someone give Tony Schiavone a raise for saying, "Oh my God, it's Sting"?
I know, right?
Oh man, yeah, but Tony Schiavone just like milked it. It was, and I was like just falling for it. I was like gushing too, because I was like, because the whole like, it's been 18 years since Sting has been on TNT, and it's like, it just brought back so much like feels from my childhood.
It did.
Like, yeah, like Schiavone saying that, I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, yeah, it was. I mean, I would give like all the props to Schiavone for just like milking it.
Well, and the other side of it too is you look at what he's done since since that last night on TNT, the last night of WCW. He spent some time in TNA, which not his fault that it wasn't great. TNA at that point was not a great place to be for a wrestler. Let's be blunt. He did the best with what he had there. He had some good matches, but he was involved in some absolute crap too, and he'll be the first to admit that. Then he shows up in WWE. They kind of used him okay during that time. The thing that always drove me nuts about that era was they had this big match with him and Triple H. Nobody wanted to see Sting wrestle Triple H. People want to see him wrestle The Undertaker.
Nobody wants to see anyone wrestle Triple H anymore.
No, this is exactly like that was the match that everyone wanted. Like the Icon versus the Phenom. That is what people have wanted for decades, and they didn't get it because he got injured doing this idiotic angle. That match. Why did the NWO come out to help him? They fought each other. Like it's not. Nothing about this makes sense. The whole thing was weird. This AEW run, whatever it turns out to be, is. As JR once said, JR recently said, like, this is his last gig in professional wrestling is AEW. When he's done with AEW, he's done with wrestling. That's the end of it. For Sting, that is most likely the case here, too. Whenever his run with AEW is done, that's the end of his wrestling career. That'll be it right there. He's, like you said, he's 61. This is his final run here. And having it with a company like AEW is, I think, going to be going out with his best, no matter what it is, best foot forward, period.
WWE's loss is AEW's gain because they could have signed Sting, if he is able to wrestle. They could have signed him. They could have maybe had him face Undertaker. That would have been fantastic because even the farewell to Undertaker, like, it was emotional, but it was also kind of lame.
Yep.
No offense, but Undertaker walked out and he was fantastic because he's Undertaker. But what was the point in bringing out the whole entire Hall of Fame and then having Vince come out, but they don't actually even interact with Undertaker? It was just very odd, and of course it sucks that there was no fans, which is of course not the fault of WWE, but still. I mean, just the hype. You know what? It would be probably a terrible match. One guy's 61 years old, the other guy's 55 years old. Taker versus Sting won't be a great match, but the hype, the build-up, the ticket sales.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You're right. People just, oh, God, it would be amazing. The pay-per-view buys for that would have been probably, I wouldn't be shocked if they were the biggest of all time, no matter what. It doesn't even have to be a good match. I just want to see them in the ring together, and that was the moment that WWE cheated all the fans out of in his short run with them a few years ago. That was the moment that they stole from us, and we know it's never going to happen now, just because Taker is fixing to be a trainer at the Performance Center. That's what he wants to do with his life, and he's never leaving Vince's side. He's never leaving WWE. Sting's not going back. I can't imagine he ever would, but it's never going to happen. But then you turn around and you see the potential for new storylines in AEW, and all of my animosity towards that is just washed away. Because the potential of him in AEW is so great. It's such the perfect place for him to be. I think it's the best decision for him. It's the best. I saw people online complain, oh, he's 61. What's he going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's Sting. He can just walk out to the ring in a trench coat with face paint on and a bat like he did last night, and it's friggin' awesome.
Or he could just sit in the rafters for a year like he did in '96.
Oh my God, great point. Yes. But he literally just hung out in the rafters, sometimes with a vulture.
Wait, is it a vulture or is it a crow? Because I kept on thinking of the Crow, and then the crows from Game of Thrones. So Winter is coming, Game of Thrones, the Crow, because of his...
Oh yeah, he had a crow too. There was one time he had... Oh wait, no, am I thinking Taker had the vulture with him one time? Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because...
Still, he had a bird.
Yeah, because I see people on social media is like, well, he's not going to wrestle, blah blah blah. But well,
who cares?
If have you watched him when he came back on WCW in '96? He stayed in the rafters for a year. He didn't wrestle for a whole year, and at the end of every Nitro, the camera would zoom in, and it's oh, there's Sting, and that would be it.
Right, because we've never seen old people wrestle. We've never seen the Fabulous Moolah show up butt naked and get into a table.
Oh my gosh.
Ric Flair was wrestling. He was older than Sting is right now when he was wrestling in TNA, wasn't he? Getting him and Hogan slapping into each other in TNA, bleeding everywhere every freaking night. I love Ric Flair. I'm not a biggest fan of Hulk Hogan, but I love Ric Flair. I didn't want to see any of that happen.
I think people are missing a point here, and that's why I'm saying the end of the match is what had me the most excited when he approaches Darby Allin, because I think the angle here, it's about Sting, because Sting is Sting. You know, when it comes to wrestling, he's bigger than life, but he's there for Darby Allin. He's there to help usher in the new version of Sting, the guy that's gonna take over. You know what I mean? We'll see if it actually happens. We'll see if Darby Allin has the talent and the in-ring talent and the charisma. You know what I mean? We'll see if his career can last, if he gets injured or not. Darby Allin has been with AEW since the start, just like Sting was with AEW for WCW for like ever type thing. So right now, like, you're too, like, I mean, you think of like future talent, like who's going to be running this company in like the future. It's going to be like MJF, Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin. Those seem, and I guess Orange Cassidy. Those seem to be like the 5 guys that they're really. I mean, there's other people too. Obviously, we talk about every single week how great the roster is, but I just like, this is like amazing, like, because like the thing is, it's not just a legend of wrestling. It's Sting from WCW, like WCW, the wrestling promotion that used to be on TNT. You know what I mean? Like, that's what AEW is basically like WCW resurrected, but like with a different brand, right? Yeah. And it's like if it was Hogan or you know, even Ric Flair to some extent, because Ric Flair spent a lot of his time in WWE. If it was, you know, Bret Hart, like whatever, like it wouldn't be the same. But it's Sting. Like, that's what makes it special. So and you know what, Ian, I hope he is just a manager and not a wrestler, because we've always said we don't have room to bring in 61-year-old wrestlers to wrestle when you have all this fresh new talent that you want that don't get enough screen time because they don't have enough airtime because they've only got one show that airs on television, which is right now is Dynamite. So like, you don't want Sting to take up like 20 minutes on Dynamite wrestling when he's not, you know, he's past his prime, when you could have like a really kick-ass guy like Darby Allin or Orange Cassidy or a tag team like Top Flight use that time to build their brand.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. Like, I was watching Dark this week, and they had that match with Chaos Project, and their wrestling matches have devolved into Luther using Serpentico as a bat that he just bludgeons people with, which I don't even know what I'm watching. Instead of watching Top Flight wrestle, I'm watching Chaos Project. I'm watching Luther throw Serpentico at his, and then every match Serpentico tries to pick up Luther and fails because Luther's like 8 times his size. So shocker. Instead of watching Top Flight get some screen time. Yeah. I don't want that to I agree with you completely. I don't want that happening here. Like, I'm looking for some kind of crazy promos between Jericho and Sting when, you know, like, assuming Sammy's still part of the Inner Circle at this point, where Sammy's trying to take the belt away from Darby and Sting and Jericho are yelling by proxy at each other, kind of thing. Like, I want to see that. Like, I want to see Sting get into it. He is there to give star power, to establish star power to a young company and young stars to take them to the next level. He is doing what Jericho did off the start a year ago. And the problem, I love Jericho. This is no disrespect meant to him, but he's been there the entire time now. We just see him as part of AEW. This was the perfect move on their part right now, because Jericho Star hasn't faded at all, but he's just part of the scenery. He's part of AEW.
We have to remember that if there's one kick-ass way for Jericho to retire, it would be to fight the man he's never fought, and that is Sting. Sting and Jericho have never had a match.
And I think they never had a match?
Nope, they've never had a match.
Even back in WCW?
Never, ever had a match.
Nope. Bischoff kept him away from guys like Sting. Like, he was not interested in having the Jerichos of the world face the Stings of the world at all. No. And I think they've already. I agree with you completely. I had the same thought, and I think they're building to it, because in the last couple of weeks, Chris has faced both Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, 2 other veterans he has never faced before those weeks.
He still needs to wrestle Sean Spears.
Has he wrestled Sean Spears?
He's never wrestled Sean. I don't know. Maybe in AEW, maybe in the past year, but I don't think so. I don't remember him wrestling Sean Spears.
No, he hasn't wrestled Sean Spears.
Because from my memory, from who is in the actual AEW roster as of right now, I think Sean Spears is of like, the guys that have been around for a while. I'm not going to count the guys who are brand new. Sean Spears is the one who he hasn't wrestled until now because, of course, now you got Sting. So, but dude, we're talking about two of the greatest wrestlers who have ever laced up a pair of boots, stepped into a WCW ring. Here we are 18 years later, and we might get the Jericho Sting match we've always wanted.
I absolutely think they should do that. Again, like we're talking about two guys who are in the twilight of their careers, although in Sting's case, in ring wise, he's probably past the twilight at this point. But you know what? Goddamn, I still think the two of them are so good at what they do. They're so smart in the ring that even now, I still think they could walk into the ring. It'll be a different match than it would have been 20 years ago, but I still think it'll be a great match.
They both have a bat.
That is true. That is so true because
that's interesting. Oh, that's so interesting. The two bats. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. Floyd versus Sting's bat.
Sting never named his bat, did he?
No, he didn't. No, he shouldn't. There's so much potential here. Like I think it was, again, and we've said it several times already. I'm going to say it one more time. I don't know what it costs to bring in Sting. It's going to be worth every penny for them. If they brought in Hogan, I would probably have stopped watching it. They're not. I'm pretty sure Hogan's under contract with AEW. WWE. I'm pretty sure I would have stopped watching. I don't want to see Hogan. I never want to see Hogan. I definitely don't want to see Hogan now. But if they brought in, and I keep in mind, I like Kevin Nash, but I don't want to see Kevin Nash there.
Yeah,
I don't have. Do I have a problem with Scott Hall? No, I don't have a problem with Scott Hall. Do I want to see him in AEW? Hell no, I don't want to see him in AEW. Sting is the guy I wanted to see.
No, I think they do a good job of picking the veterans. Like having Greg the Hammer Valentine show up, he just shows up and he's in the stands. He doesn't, that was kind of cool. It's kind of like a cameo. Jake the Snake made sense. I mean, Jake the Snake never really ever went back to WWE after all those years, right? But having like a guy like Hogan or Kevin Nash, I mean, those guys come and go and come and go. It's no longer fun to see those guys pop up.
No, it's really not. And I'm not. They're so associated. I think the other big difference is when you look back at the WCW era, Sting is one of the good parts of WCW. When you think back on Hall and Nash and Hogan, you don't think of them as the good parts. You look at, I know, again, I'm not meaning to be disrespectful to their contribution to the business, but when you hear all the stories from behind the scenes, they were part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that come to AEW. What I don't want is Hulk Hogan bringing his bullshit to AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I look at what happened in TNA when he showed up. One of the things that set TNA Impact apart back in the day was the six-sided ring. And it was interesting. It gave them a different flow to their matches. It allowed them to do some different booking options, which was interesting. When Hogan showed up, one of the first things that changed was they went to a standard four-sided ring. And that was, from what I understand, a big part of his influence was him being there saying, it should be a four-sided ring, blah, blah, blah. And immediately it just became a more tedious, low-rent version of WWE. And I'm like, I don't want to see. There are things that make AEW great and that set it apart. You start bringing in guys like Hogan, and it'll just go to be, it'll go down the same path again. It'll become WWE light. What Sting does great is he fits into. He doesn't make it about him. He fits into what's going on, and I think they can do that here. Last night was not necessarily the best Dynamite that they've had, but it was the biggest.
Well, for me, like Sting showing back on TNT is just like I mentioned earlier, it was just bringing back like all the feels of like watching WCW because I talked to friends about like wrestling and how I got back into AEW, and then some of them were like, I was like, oh, why don't you just follow that? Like, I'm surprised like you don't follow WWE, and I kind of like fell off like hard like after the Sting and Seth Rollins match in WrestleMania. It's like I just really like just stopped following after that because I was like, oh, they're ruining the talent. All these people that I used to love growing up are like just like.
It's also like they need to respect our time, and that is why I stopped watching WWE because for every good match, you would have to sit through 6 hours of bad TV, and like I can't watch Raw, SmackDown, and NXT and watch a pay-per-view every month. And only 10% of it is actually quality wrestling and quality story.
Well, yeah, it's exactly it's that too. It's like the creative writing and the storylines that are happening in WWE is like it's just so not interesting. I think that sure, go ahead.
No, you finish up. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, but like for me, like just that AEW on TNT and it just had this like magical thing, and like also like I don't think they need all the big like Sting is like for me like the cherry on top, but watching like the other legends show up, like not huge legends in particular, but like seeing Raven in the backstage, seeing Conan show up occasionally, like
Gangrel.
Like,
Gangrel.
Oh, dude, that was so funny, man. Like seeing Gangrel and the Hurricane, I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? But
I'm honestly impressed he appear as the Hurricane. Like that one shocked me because I thought WWE would have owned the rights to that.
Oh, that was so random, but like just perfectly like it's just perfectly like Matt Hardy setting it up.
But you know what? Sting didn't just show up like at the start of the show or after commercial break. He showed up at the end of a fantastic match between Cody, Darby Allin, Will Hobbs, and Ricky Starks. So out of those 4 guys, 3 of them are basically, pretty much brand new to most wrestling fans. Like, they've only really become popular because of AEW, even if they've had matches in indie wrestling promotions in the past, right? Especially when it comes to like actual TV time. You know what? I don't know if I told you guys this. My introduction to Darby Allin was actually that amazing documentary series, which was on Crave here in Canada. Not the Dark Side of the Ring, the other documentary wrestling series. I forget what it's called now. Anyways, they had this whole entire episode, and they followed Darby Allin before he was even in AEW. That's how I first discovered Darby Allin.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I discovered Darby Allin through AEW. I'm like, who is this guy with the half face paint? And then you grow to love him because of these wild antics and very painful looking moments in AEW. Like the whole like thumbtacks on the skateboard. I was like, oh my god.
And that's the stuff that I get it's part of his character, but that's the stuff we were talking about before. But like, it's gonna get him hurt one of these days.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And I mean, or alternatively, put a bunch of holes in Ricky Starks.
Did you watch his interview on the official AEW podcast?
I did not.
Oh wow, that guy's hardcore. It's not very good. Like he is what he is. Like it's not like a gimmick or an act. Like the guy, like it was like, and that's the thing. Like again, I discovered him in this documentary, and I can't remember the name of the documentary, even though I reviewed it. So I'm trying to find a name because I want to recommend it to our listeners. But yeah, I mean, the guy's been through hell, and he at one point in time he was like dirt poor. He was homeless, living in the back seat of like living in the back of his car. I do worry about the guy, but I have a feeling that because at this point in time, especially with Sting now in AEW and Sting looking to be his mentor, I think he's so valuable to AEW that I don't think AEW is going to let him do crazy things anymore. Like they're going to have to put some kind of like insurance on this guy and be like, hey, you know what? You can't do this anymore.
Yeah, just like reel it in a bit,
Well, that's an interesting point because before their match, when Darby won the title off of Cody, they were doing that bit where Ricky was constantly sitting in like the upper deck by himself, watching the matches, just being all broody and Sting-like. Mm-hmm. And it was at the end of one of Cody's matches, and he was talking about how he was literally basically saying all that stuff. You're talking about how TNT doesn't want you to be the face of the company. Of course they want you. I scouted you. I brought you in. They want you here. They're putting you in this match. Like you're a valuable commodity in this company. And he's literally just yelling this at him. I'm like, he's yelling at him what we're all thinking. You need to take better care of yourself because you are a valuable part of this company.
By the way, the name of the documentary about wrestlers, the name that I forgot, it's called The Wrestlers. So actually, it's originally a Viceland production. So I think it premiered on Viceland, and then on here in Canada, you can also watch it on Crave. So anyhow, you can watch it on VOD. It's called The Wrestlers, and it is really good. I think there's like 8 episodes, and there's one episode where they spend a lot of time with Darby Allin.
See, that's a good thing, though. It's good to give him that kind of look into his life because, I mean, he's got a real. I think it's not just the face paint that makes people compare him to Sting. He's really enigmatic too, kind of like Sting, Like even if you know who Steve Borden is, Sting is still really enigmatic. Like even now, like I guess the Undertaker's kind of lost some of that with all the documentaries about him on the WWE network and showing off Mark Calloway more and more all the time. But it's interesting because he's such an. That's the cool part about Sting, and that's the cool part about Darby is they're just interesting.
But how would that? I just thinking about it, like how would that dynamic work of like Sting being the manager of Darby Allin, because he had like these, dark, broody, somewhat silent characters. Like how would they interact with each other?
That's going to be the fun part.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that's going to be the most interesting part. Is these two face painted silent guys who just like to basically get in fights, like interacting is going to be.
Would they just like stare at each other? Like
I don't know. It's kind of the same way how the whole like weird diamond ring thing that WWE likes to do with AEW likes to do with this match between. I really want Orange Cassidy to win because I want to see him have to wear an orange like this gigantic diamond ring that he keeps misplacing because he doesn't care enough.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that too.
It could be so amusing if, like, best friends are like, you dropped your ring again, you ass.
Yeah.
Just keep losing it.
It's like, Orange, like, where's the ring? It's like, I don't
know. What? And he just goes and lies down for a while or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's just, that's the kind of stuff that's what makes it interesting. That's the kind of stuff that WWE doesn't do. Like, I mean, that you look at the problem with WWE is and has been for a long time, it's constantly changing who their creative lead is. Like Vince is always the end game, but now it's Bruce Pritchard behind the scenes on both major shows, and repeatedly a lot of the talent hate his guts because it's just like before that there was Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman was pushing all these guys like Aleister Black and Andrade and such. And the second that they pushed him out of that role, they all got pushed into catering and haven't been seen since. Like it's like all of these storylines, like you just watch it and it's infuriating because as a fan you get invested, and then these people just disappear and you're like, what? A storyline's just suddenly in. And don't get me wrong, some of that stuff kind of happens in AEW occasionally. Like there's the booking of Allie, which remains still one of my most perplexing things. Like we've talked about it before. She was the bunny, then she wasn't. Now she isn't. Well, and their kind of explanation for it is acceptable but not great. But they're not guilty of that. They're not suddenly like there's random wrestlers that you've just never ever seen again, and it's because Vince. Look at what happened to the Iconics in WWE. They were one of the best tag teams they had, not just female tag teams, but best period. And Vince decided that Peyton Royce, Sean Spears' wife, was going to be this. She's the next big thing for us in the women's division. We're going to split her up from Billie Kay, and so he split them up. And then they had their draft. Billie goes to SmackDown, which she's actually developed an interesting shtick where she appears in random scenes, giving people her headshot and resume, which has actually turned out to be really funny. And then Peyton's on Raw by herself. And then suddenly, Vince decides, you know what? Nah, I don't like Peyton anymore. Just put her with Lacey Evans. They're a tag team now. And you're like, and they appear once in a while kind of thing. And you're like, well, what was the point? Like, what was the point of breaking up this tag team? What have you accomplished? And all because you suddenly got bored. And that's you're not going to see that in AEW, You're not going to see moments like that with people where they
it's exactly like what Rick pointed out, Like it just felt like a lack of respect of like the fans' time and their investment into the characters. It's just like I'll just do. It's like it's his personal playroom, and he's going to do whatever he wants and just not care of what the fans want. Like that was that's the impression I got with me after a while with WWE. So
he doesn't care what anybody wants. It's what Vince wants. It doesn't matter what the wrestlers want. It doesn't matter what the fans want. It doesn't matter what anybody wants. It's just it's purely what Vince McMahon wants, and it doesn't matter if it makes sense. The general reports that SmackDown gets written about 3 hours before it goes to air.
You know why companies like WWE still succeed? It's because of the fear of missing out. It's the fact that we have these wrestling fans like myself, like Ian, like Aaron, like whatever, who've been watching WWE for years, and even though we don't have as much interest in the company anymore, we still want to check in every so often, especially at pay-per-views, because we're afraid we're going to miss that big match. We're going to miss the moment when Undertaker fights Sting, or when Undertaker has a Hell in a Cell match with whoever. We're gonna miss something. And so it's hard for people to let go. It's not like an addiction. It's just because you want to be in the conversation, and especially with the internet these days, right? Like everybody wants to be in the know. Everybody wants to like binge watch the show so they can start talking about the ending of blah 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 Netflix hit.
Yeah,
it's really about the fear of missing out, and like that's why I personally still check into WWE from time to time, especially with pay-per-views. Because, like the last pay-per-view, I needed to see Undertaker's farewell, his goodbye, even if it wasn't exactly the most exciting goodbye. I just needed to see it. But anyhow,
that's
AEW
fair.
rocks. It's the greatest thing ever because it now has Sting. And I like the fact that when it ended, they actually let us know that they've signed Sting for a multiple-year contract. It's not just like he's going to appear this week like Mike Tyson and we're never going to see him again.
I agree. That was a real smart move because if he just showed up for that one moment, I mean, I would have sat there and gone, okay, well, like you said, they had Greg the Hammer Valentine in the arena watching one match, so that doesn't mean he's coming back again. But then again, like you said, they also have, Jake the Snake around all the time. So, I mean, who knows what they're going to – I wouldn't have known, but it's nice to have that point of clarity and nice to know it was – I agree with you completely. It was nice that they did that. It was a smart move because then the next day there wasn't 87 articles going, is he with them permanently? We know he's with them. He's with them for a while. He's in for the long – whatever he's doing with AEW, he's in it for the long haul, and that's great. He should – I miss Sting when he's not around. He's like the only other guy I compare him to is The Undertaker, because when The Undertaker is there, it's going to be hard getting used to we've had sort of a few years now to get used to The Undertaker being around less and less, but Sting and The Undertaker are such key fixtures of professional wrestling in the past, 3 decades or more, that it's kind of hard to know that you're going to have to say goodbye at some point. And you know what? We're going to have to say goodbye to Sting at some point too. But it's nice to know that he's going to get a good send-off from AEW.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And it'll be a great send off too, because it's going to be like on a company that's on a network where he pretty much made his ground.
Absolutely. And it's going to be on his terms too. Like he will have some say in it. If he was doing this in WWE, it's on Vince's terms. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Whereas he gets to do whatever his AEW is respectful of their fans, their time, and their talent. And you know what? Whatever he does, whatever he wraps up with, that's AEW will give him the right send off.
Can I just add like a funny thing, like when Sting was about to make his entrance, that moment where like I saw, because like his name pops up on the prompt, like on the screen,
right?
But when it started with an S, I swear to you guys, I thought, oh my god, is this Shaq?
Oh, well, I mean, that makes sense because they teased Shaq.
Totally.
And they teased Shaq with Cody.
Yeah, they did tease Shaq, but also like that tease of Shaq that was a little like, okay, that was a little weird.
I still do not understand what happened. Like, did she mess up her lines and we're not actually going to see Shaq in the ring, or is Shaq coming to AEW? Is he waiting for?
No idea.
I don't know. That's a little like when you think about it now, like the way she came out and the way she set up like the tease for Shaq, like it's a little mind-boggling because.
Well, absolutely, it was very confusing. There's been no clarification, and then Jade appeared the next week attacking Brandy backstage, and then that was the end of sort of. We haven't seen her since then. So
exactly, they haven't continued because Winter's Coming. They've done so much to advance many storylines, even through the Battle Royale, but like they don't seem to be advanced. They don't seem to be advancing Brandy Rhodes' feud with what's her name again?
Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill.
I don't even really. I honestly don't even really know who she is. From what I know about her, she's a fitness person, model or something. And she recently, I think she's a cosplayer too, because she put up some excellent cosplay of her as Storm, which was fantastic. Like she did a great job of it. But I'm like, I don't know who you are or why you're yelling. Like I remember when she came out for that bit, and I was looking at I don't know who you are or why you're yelling at Cody Rhodes, and why did you just say the name Shaq? It was so confusing.
Exactly. It was so out of place. But then that big entrance with the snow, I for a second I see the S, I'm like, Shaq?
No, that's honestly fair. I can totally see that.
But it made the pop off even better when I saw like STING. I'm like, oh shit, Sting.
And then he appears.
Yeah, then he appears. I was freaking out.
Man, it's funny because as soon as the lights went out, I knew he was coming out. I just had like, I don't know why the first person I thought of was Sting, and maybe it's because we talked about it a few weeks ago. But right away it was like, because for the lights to go out and Darby Allin in the ring, I just right away thought of Sting, and that was a great match. That's the last thing I'm going to say before we wrap up. That match between those four wrestlers was great. I love Ricky Starks. I love Will Hobbs, or Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't know if they dropped the Will.
They have, yeah. It's Powerhouse Hobbs.
So they just dropped his first name. I liked his first name.
I did too.
So
it's part of the heel turn, though, man. It's part of the heel turn. Will Hobbs was the good guy. Powerhouse Hobbs is the bad guy. All right, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Talk AEW, the AEW podcast for GoombaStomp.com and TiltMagazine.net. Big thank you goes out to our special guest this week, Aaron Santos. Aaron, thanks for being here.
Oh, no problem. Always a pleasure.
And of course, the editor-in-chief of Goomba Stomp and Tilt Magazine, Ricky D.
And just a reminder to our listeners, you can listen to the show over at GoombaStomp.com, Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Deezer, Listen Notes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, you name it. All of the links are over at GoombaStomp.com. Check out the wrestling section. You'll find all of our episodes.
And if you want an official transcript of this week's episode, just listen back to it and write it out yourself. We're not doing that for you. We'll talk to you all next week on Talk AEW.